When I was 14, I planned my wedding.
This one's wife. Harry, you're not a victim. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. The ramifications continue to rumble on following Harry's court defeat of last week, when the judgment was handed down by the Court of Appeal, and his subsequent interview with the BBC and the statement that he released. Harry's victim mentality shines through. This victim mentality stems from the trauma that he experienced as a consequence of the loss of his mother at a young age and the events surrounding that. This has morphed into a paranoia on the part of Harry, whereby he blames the media and hates them, whilst at the same time hypocritically courting the media when it serves his own purposes. As a consequence of his blindness to that hypocrisy, which is generated by his paranoia and also his belief that he's on some kind of crusade, he continues to use the media to demonstrate his overarching victim mentality. His paranoia also continues, whereby he believes that there are certain elements that want to cause him and his family harm. He also alludes to the fact that there are elements within the royal family that are behind the possibility of this harm coming to him. Now, understandably, the loss of his mother at a young age will have and did have a considerable impact upon him. However, he fails to take any responsibility for his actions in that regard, preferring to play the victim and basically squeeze in mention of his mother at any available opportunity, which is to be contrasted with the behaviour of William. Now, Harry has every single right to be upset, indeed distraught about the loss of his mother, but there comes a time where it's necessary to move on, but he doesn't. And furthermore, as I've explained previously, this inherent vulnerability of his, alongside the paranoia, is something that a narcissist such as his wife, this one's wife, would readily exploit. She has a victim mentality also, but hers is as a product of her narcissism. She, in order to control Harry and to triangulate Harry with the world at large, utilises his vulnerability caused by the loss of his mother and feeds his paranoia. Because by feeding his paranoia, he's easier to control, and by feeding his paranoia, it enables her to get what she needs. But this victim mentality on the part of Harry is something that more and more people are now recognising and criticising. Marina Hyde, for example, writing in The Guardian, states, "Prince Harry wanted a completely new life, and he has got one. He is no longer a working royal, but a rich person, His Rich Highness. This involves a change of mindset in a mind that is somewhat hard to describe as quick on the uptake. Being rich is all well and good, of course, and the Duke certainly moaned enough about money when he was still within the confines of royal duty to hear insiders tell it. But the reason you don't see Beyoncé out there on the talk show circuit whining about how much money she has to spend on security, easily 8 figures a year, is that she, a very rich person, seems to understand that regrettably it goes with the territory and that you have to pay for it out of your riches. Next week, Kim Kardashian is expected to take the stand in the Paris trial of the robbers who tied her up and subjected her to a truly horrific ordeal when she was staying in the city in 2016. At no point during her examination is she expected to say that Francois Hollande, who was president at the time, should have intervened via the workings of the state to provide security, or to stop her bodyguard going out to a nightclub with Courtney and Kendall, let's face it. As well as being biologically unable to sweat, Prince Andrew had this weird condition where he couldn't have a listen to himself, and you do worry that Prince Harry has inherited the same gene. On Friday, in the wake of losing his legal challenge over taxpayer-funded police security when in the United Kingdom, Harry gave an interview to the BBC. It took place in another one of those random spare Monty Shit Show mansions he and this one's wife seemed to borrow when they want to demand foreign taxpayer cash or make televised pasta for an obsequiously grateful hairstylist. Also, in its attempt to make his own behavioural choices seem like victimhood, this interview was almost Trumpian, although without that master communicator's ability to stick the landing. Alleging establishment conspiracy, playing the victim of his own decisions, saying the quiet bit out loud about how the law of the land should just do what his family wants. If you were playing bullshit bingo, you'd have got a full house in seconds. Perhaps one of his many very rich friends could give him a primer on what being a very rich person involves. Rich people who have earned their own money understand that publicly gnashing their teeth about the cost of security is the quickest route to ridicule and contempt from a public that is infinitely less than them. Doing for broadcast in the country the day after local elections, where the most toxic issue on the doorstep was means testing the winter fuel allowance, well, have a listen to yourself, Harry Antoinette. But this is Harry's problem, you see. He's thick, and he's so caught up in himself, something that's encouraged and abetted and aided by his wife, that he simply is incapable of realising how he comes across. That so bound up is he in his paranoia and victimhood that he fails to understand how stupid he sounds. Alternatively, he could read the comments below the video in the various media outlets in which it has since been shared. As an enthusiastic adopter and scatterer of labels and pop psychology in recent years, Harry may be confused to find the same now being applied to him. You can't move for people saying, "This is what narcissistic injury looks like," or accusing him of victim blaming his family or calling him a Nepo baby. Weirdly, Nepo baby is not one he heard when he was in the royal family, quite amusingly, given that's literally the entire point. See also entitled and privileged. He seems not to have clocked on to the fact that people have had enough of the holier-than-thou act. Perhaps he needs unconscious pious training. Either way, Harry's a rich person now, and the rules are different. Again, could someone get him up to speed? That said, if they do, it will come too late to have headed off some of the more eye-popping etiquette breaches in the society has chosen. As far back as the Oprah interview, Harry was already pissing on his new employers, explaining his mega money deals with Netflix and Spotify. That was suggested by somebody else by the point of where my family literally cut me off financially, and I had to afford security for us. Oof. I bet Netflix and Spotify executives love that explanation from the talent. This is like burning your bridge, then someone building you a new $120 million bridge, and you decided to burn that one down too because you're too stupid and rude to understand how to behave. Again, you don't see a whole load of rich celebrities kicking back on the talk show sofas and honking, "I literally did this movie because my agent told me I had to do it to pay for my dinosaur bones acquisition habit." Even though I suspect that this has actually been the case for a number of Nicolas Cage projects. Perhaps this is why Spotify's head of podcast innovation and monetization came to describe Harry and this one's wife as grifters after their deal came to an end, with the Sussexes having served up precisely 12 episodes of a single podcast series that was not even in the same zip code as a hit, whatever Spotify's kindly in-house charts might have suggested. Arguably, the most bizarre irony of all of this is Harry's ongoing insistence on melting down in the media. If he detests the media so much, he could always stop making them money by conducting his private business in public, driving trafficking engagement for those he considers his sworn enemies. But of course he does this because he's too stupid to realise that this is a problem, and he's encouraged by his wife because it generates attention, fuel for her. The fact is, Harry plays the victim, but he no longer should do. He's a grown man that should take responsibility for his decisions. But when ensnared by his wife, who has this malleable material to play with regard to his emotional thinking and his dim-wittedness, she is able to harness his narcissistic traits of entitlement, his narcissistic traits of resentment and defiance and selfishness, so that he continues to sob about how hard done to he has been, without ever contemplating how ridiculous he sounds. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.